Homeschooling's hard. Most things in life that are worth doing aren't easy. And when you have other people to give you a hand and, you know, take you up there, if you went to go up Mount Everest, right, you wouldn't do it alone. You'd have a team of people around you, a guide to help you out. And when you have a community that's committed to your success, just like a coach in sports or a music teacher or someone leading you up Mount Everest, you're going to be much more successful and you're going to enjoy what you're doing much more.
Welcome to the EQ for Entrepreneurs podcast. Like most business owners, you already know you need good business and marketing strategies to scale and be profitable. But at some point, you've hit the dreaded wall where you feel stuck and frustrated. EQ for Entrepreneurs is for business owners and leaders who are honest enough to admit that they just might be the ones holding their business back and are brave enough to change that.
We're Noble and Kathy, and every week we're having candid conversations about all things emotional intelligence and how growing that has allowed us to get out of our own way and is radically transforming both our businesses and our personal lives. This is the secret sauce strategy for modern entrepreneurs who are tired of hustling without seeing results and want to grow a business and a life that they love.
Oh, man, what's up, bro? It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. How have you been?
Your hairdo. I like your hairdo, man.
Yeah, I got a fresh cut yesterday because I heard I was coming on the Big Noble show.
Right, that's right. Dude, it's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
How's the fam?
They're doing good. Lily's doing gymnastics and Trey's doing t-ball and Jonah just turned 1. So everyone's growing up too fast, but you know how that is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't believe, dude, I remember when our daughter was in foundations and she was at the cutoff, she was 4, about to be 5, made the cutoff, whatever. And dude, she just finished up B and is going into 1, bro.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
right.
Awesome.
Which is nuts. So we just finished up mock trial, which was high adventure. It was amazing. It was amazing. And she's excited. And for those of y'all that are watching that may not be homeschoolers or classical conversations folks, challenge 1 refers to like being a freshman basically in high school. Yeah. Challenge B refers to basically kind of 8th grade-ish. So anyway, and man, Robert, thank you so much. Let me do a quick intro. I know we're on the clock here. So for those of you all that are either watching this live on Zoom or on our podcast or our YouTube channel called EQ for Entrepreneurs, thank you all so much for joining us. I have a privilege of interviewing the CEO of Classical Conversations, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, homeschool organization in the country, and it's global. It's a global homeschool company. And I had the privilege actually of working with Classical Conversations for a handful of years and just had an amazing, amazing time. Maybe much to Robert's chagrin every now and then. But it was such a blessing. And, I'm super passionate about homeschooling. And because of the pandemic, we have got obviously millions of people that have chosen, public homeschooling now versus public school. And I'm really excited, Robert, that you're willing to take the time to spend with us. And the topic for today is emotionally healthy homeschooling and kind of what that may look like. And again, your perspective of decades of being in the homeschool world and now running a company of homeschoolers. Super interested to hear your thoughts and perspectives on that. And before I drop some questions into Big Robert, I want to throw a couple points on emotional health and emotional intelligence to you guys to kind of set the tone a little bit. Because it wasn't until a few years ago when I started my own emotional health journey, and I had no idea how many different areas of my life it impacted, including parenting, relationships, and homeschooling. So number one is this quote. I got 3 quotes for you, and then I'm going to open up some questions for Robert here. Number one is this. I got from a guy named Daniel Haggedorn, who was actually also a CC dad a number of years ago and was a high school director, called a challenge director in Classical Conversations. I interviewed him, episode 59, on how to have emotionally healthy family. And he said, if you don't deal with your emotional issues, your children will. Mm. If you don't deal with your emotional issues, your children will, and your family will ultimately. Next one, when I say the next 2 I say on our podcast almost all the time, unaddressed emotional issues do not get better over time. They actually compound. Unaddressed emotional issues do not get better over time. They actually compound. The third one is emotionally healthy people help heal other people emotionally. So the healthier that we can be in our homeschooling journey as parents, as a homeschool dad, as a homeschool mom, that will bleed over into creating a more healthy, atmosphere for our families and for our children, and will obviously set them up for success in the future. So, Robert, without further ado, man, what impact have you seen over decades of homeschooling yourself and being homeschooled, now homeschooling, and obviously running a massive homeschooling company organization? What is the impact of emotional health on homeschooling or one's ability to homeschool?
Yeah, thank you. You're making me sound old with these decades. So I don't know if I'm emotionally ready now to answer this question. I think one of the things that we always tell families when they start homeschooling, especially if they're coming from a government background or even a private school background of educating their kids, and they've pulled them out of the system for one reason or another, is really spend that first year building that relationship with your child and getting to understand and to love them. The math, the science, the reading, the writing, that will come. If you've got a great curriculum behind you, like Classical Conversations, and there's other ones that are out there, they're going to make sure that educational standpoint's going to get done and accomplished and check off those boxes. But until you have a healthy emotional relationship with your child, and help them have that healthy emotional relationship as well with adults around you, it's going to be tough. And a lot of times they're coming from a different environment. They haven't had that modeled to them. They've been, their life has been modeled around other students their same age. And so they've got, emotional cues and just that background of, if I'm an 8-year-old and I hang out with other 8-year-olds all day, well, that's how I'm going to behave. And so when you hear things from families like, oh, I just couldn't homeschool because I couldn't be with my kid all day, one, that makes me really sad inside that they would say something like that about their child. And then 2, I'd say, well, just go look in a mirror and that will tell you whose fault it is that your kid's like that, because it's your responsibility as a parent to make sure that they are emotionally healthy and that they have the tools in their toolbox to respond to the ups and downs of life. And that's really a big issue with our young people today. I talked to some college coaches, and they're employing psychologists to help their athletes get over disappointment because they don't have the emotional capabilities, those skill sets that most of us got growing up. This generation, for some reason, is missing those. And I think that probably goes back to the parenting, and everyone gets a trophy and tell us how you feel about this math equation, not solve the math equation for the right answer. So that's going to be super important and really going to help them live a flourishing life when they can identify their emotions, control their emotions, and treat everyone around them with love and respect.
That's great, Robert. One of the things that we have learned in our last 3 or 4 years of really diving into this world of emotional health and emotional intelligence is that what we have found is not everyone has learned the tools of emotional management, of self-management. And it's actually, that research from one of the books that we've been reading is it's actually harmful to have more self-awareness with no self-management tools. So, and the younger generation, and I would argue, like the Gen Z and maybe even some millennials, emotional health has never been talked more about, or, emotions, period. But again, more awareness with no tools is what we've seen. Some of the research is not healthy or helpful. And so
it makes it overwhelming, right? If you know something's a problem, but you have no way of solving it, then that creates, kind of a snowball effect for these young people. And so, you probably know more about the emotional tools than I do. But that, parents, it's not healthy, like you're saying, to overemphasize one without creating an atmosphere to solve that.
And Robert, to your point, even for the parents, dude, because again, a lot of books that I've been reading, 70% of adults are not able to accurately identify their emotions. 70%. And so we wonder, man, why do we see so much burnout in the homeschool community, CC or not? I think that's one thing is because listen, I obviously I think you'd be the first one. Homeschooling is not easy. It's right. It's no joke. So anyway, here's the next question I want to ask you about this kind of this world. What is the impact? And I've got an EQ answer too, but from your perspective, how important is the concept of community in being able to homeschool effectively and homeschool for the long haul?
Yeah. Community is so important. When we're created, we are communal people. We need to be around others. There's a lot of training in entrepreneurship about identifying blind spots. And guess what? You can't identify your own blind spot. You need someone else to do that for you. So that's one of the benefits of community. The other thing is, we talk about emotional health, and it's a little bit off topic to this specific question, but I'll bring it back around. People say, like, why do you read fairy tales? And I think it was C.S. Lewis, but it might have been someone else said, children know that there are dragons. Fairy tales teach them that dragons can be defeated. And I think that goes back with what you were saying about, hey, we know that there's emotions, but we don't have any tools to defeat them. With community, homeschooling or anything is very difficult. Like, you have in sports, you have position coaches. Like, there's almost more coaches on the field than players in some sports because they need help. They need that support to be as successful as possible. When we are in community, like if little Johnny's having trouble with a subject, there's a good chance that another mom has had that same issue and can help you resolve that. Or if you've had a bad day, there's a mom or dad in that community that can say, hey, I've had bad days too, and they can lift you up. If you've had a good day, right, you can share that with a friend and make their day a little bit better as well. And so community is so important, but not just in the homeschooling. There's different communities and different versions outside of CC, but they aren't all doing the same curriculum. They don't all have that same vision and goal in mind. And so they lack certain aspects of community when you're not, fully aligned in what your goals are for the long haul. And so, that's just so, it's such a blessing because, like you said, homeschooling is hard. Most things in life that are worth doing aren't easy. And when you have other people to give you a hand and, take you up there, if you went to go up Mount Everest, right, you wouldn't do it alone. You'd have a team of people around you, a guide to help you out. And when you have a community that's committed to your success, just like a coach in sports or a music teacher or someone leading you up Mount Everest, you're going to be much more successful and you're going to enjoy what you're doing much more.
Love it. In Hebrews 10:24 and 25, I've got it right here. It says, let us not give up. Let's see, I've got it right here. So And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. And what's interesting about, and one of the neat things about CC is in addition to the amazing curriculum and all that, community is one of the most powerful aspects, in my personal opinion, about classical conversations. And absolutely, is there other communities out there? 100%. But that's one of the powerful things I think in CC. But here's the deal: is psychologically, again, from my research, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but psychologically, having a community and emotional support is critical in the mental and emotional health of people, period. Homeschoolers, public school, doesn't matter. And so not only for students, but also especially for parents. Because again, if the parents are jacked up emotionally, guess what is going to happen to the kids, right? Pretty easy conclusion there. And check this out, Robert. This came out yesterday. Read an article. The city of Colorado Springs declared a state of emergency for children. There have been more children with depression, suicide. The number one cause of death of children between the age of 10 and 18 in Colorado Springs is suicide. And what is that, right? I mean, so what we could talk for hours just about that. What is that saying about the emotional health of the children? But where does the emotional health of the children come from? Right? Comes from community, comes from parents or lack thereof, right? And so this is such a critical, real, relevant topic right now. Have you seen? Okay, here's a great question. What have you noticed impacts the overall health? I mean, what are some factors that you have seen that impact the overall health of a homeschool family? Can you tell, from your perch as a CEO of a massive homeschool company, okay, here are some qualities of a healthy, emotionally healthy homeschool family or a healthy homeschool family. Here are maybe some traits or qualities of maybe an unhealthy, homeschool family. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's, mutually exclusive to homeschoolers, but, the involvement of the father, is he supportive? He doesn't necessarily have to teach any of the subjects, but typically the mom's doing the homeschooling. So, how supportive is the father in the endeavor? Is there those positive reinforcement mechanisms in place in the home? Is there discipline in the home as well? So much of, obviously, emotion can also be dictated by diets and the environment you're in. If you're in an environment, especially now we see all these young people committing suicide. That's unfortunately not just for Colorado Springs, but all across the U.S. We see more young people dying of that than died of COVID. But they had an environment that was, some might argue, overly dramatized in order to try to force behaviors on society, and that really negatively impacted kids. So when you have just an environment that doesn't match who you're meant to be, that's one of the most devastating things, I believe, that happens. So, I mean, we're all sinful and fall short of the glory of God. So there's always things that we can all do better. But I think the most important thing for those kids is to see a cohesive family unit between that mom and dad and that relationship. And then just being around other healthy people. The Bible tells us, if you hang out with a fool, you'll become a fool. But if you hang out with, wise people, they'll help you become wise. And really people who don't make good decisions tend to continue to not make good decisions.
It's so funny that you said that. So I'm reading a book called Emotional Agility right now by Susan David, and you just hit on an actual thing. It's called social contagion. If the term brings to mind a virus spreading through a population via seemingly random casual contact, that's exactly the idea. Studies show that certain behaviors really are like colds and flus. You can catch them from other people. Your risk of becoming obese increases with each obese person you come in contact with. Your chances of getting divorced, a decision you think would be deeply personal individual, are higher if other couples in your peer group are also splitting up. So to that point, what kind of people are you surrounding yourself with in terms of educating your children? Are they pro parents taking ownership of educating their children, or no, man, I think the government would do a much better job educating children than parents, right? So, and you just social contagion, right? That is going to impact. It has an impact on our decision making, whether we agree with it or not. And society and culture, that kind of thing, has a tremendous impact on that. So to that, what challenges have you seen, Robert, with? And I'm sure, I don't know, obviously numbers and stuff like that, but I'm sure you've had a lot of people go from public school in the past year into homeschooling and into CC. What challenges have you seen them have in that transition or making that transition to homeschooling?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, the biggest transition is always spending that time with your family and getting to know each other and just building that relationship. So that's always the first thing. And then, a lot of parents, they see their kids' grades. Oh, he's a straight A student, or, she gets A's and B's and she gets happy smiles from the teacher or whatever on a report card, and they think everything's very good. And then they kind of come home and start diving into what they know or think that they should know by this age and find out there's gaps there. And so a lot of times, just because the school system's so overwhelmed with the student-teacher ratios, that, if you're a well-behaved kid, they're going to give you A's because, the teachers are having to focus elsewhere. And so I think that's also one of those things that families kind of see as these gaps that they need to fill in. And then they're also, we always hear like they learned so much this year. And so that's always wonderful to hear as well, because, you take this person who had, especially this past year with the accidental, on August 12th, they had no plans of homeschooling. On August 13th, they're homeschooling, right? Because their local school system didn't start. So they don't necessarily have training, or like they didn't go read all the books and do all the things that a lot of families get to do if they plan it out farther ahead. So the fact that that just shows me that parents and families are the best educators, with the fact that you can take a mom and dad who had no intention of doing this, one day later, put them in this situation, and 6 months later have these results of not only, understanding and learning a lot through the pandemic, but also having a stronger relationship in their family. And so that's just been a joy to see. Of course, that doesn't happen 100% of the time, but more times than not, those are the type of stories we hear.
And such a great point. How do you have a strong nation, a strong family unit? How do you have a strong family unit? And so are there exceptions? 100%. So this is not like, hey, it's, if you don't homeschool, you suck. That's not what the message is here. I think there's an argument to say that the more quality time you spend with your family, there's a good chance that you're going to have a stronger family. Again, are there exceptions? I'm sure. But I will tell you, as a 9-year homeschool dad myself, we have a very, very tight family. And our kid, which is super cool. Now she's 13, so this may be changing here soon. Right now, she still digs hanging out with us, right? Nice. I know me, and I love my folks, and I love my folks even when I was in high school. But I would not have necessarily chose to like, hey, let me hang out with if I had a choice between my friends or my parents, I probably would have chose my friends all day. Now that may just be a teenage thing. So that's, I'm not saying that's exclusive, but I'm saying that homeschool families spend more time together. I think that is probably a pretty easy argument to make there. And based on that quality time being greater, again, I think you can argue that would lead to a stronger family environment. And again, I know there's exceptions. That leads to, I feel, a stronger nation ultimately. And why is our country, in my opinion, one of the reasons why I feel our country is going through some challenges? How strong is the family unit in our country right now? And I would argue it's probably not super strong right now. What advice would you give, Robert, to a family, kind of wrapping up here? Because I know you've got to go here soon. What advice would you give to a homeschooling family, other than what you've already said? Because you've said some good things already. Anything else that you would want to say, maybe in conclusion, to encourage families that are homeschooling that maybe help them endure and persevere over the long haul?
Yeah, I think, one of the things is remember that the school part is maybe some of the least important part, as well as the home part. Get out, enjoy life, use that flexibility that you have to go see the world around you, meet new people, really experience those things that are around you. Because, learning about math and science is great, but going to a train station and seeing math and science at work is something that's going to really inspire your students. It's going to make it fun. You're going to learn something. So really just take that, global approach to your education. Don't try to bring school home, and just continue to make sure that, when your kids, act up or act out or dealing with their emotions, really help them not only understand what they're feeling or why they're feeling that, but, bring them back to the truth, bring them back to, how can they deal and process with that. I love my 4-year-old is very in tune with his emotions, and you can see when he gets mad, he just automatically runs up to his room, and 5 minutes later he comes down and he's calmed down in himself. So it's kind of interesting seeing a kid like that, and just kind of my older one's not quite like that, I'm not like that, but just able to notice that and just say, how do we help all of our kids be like that way? How do they, okay, I'm getting angry, what are some things I can do to help that? Or I'm feeling frustrated, and understanding that joy comes from Jesus, others, and yourself, and putting things in that order, and always looking through the world with the right worldview is super helpful too, knowing that victory's ours, and that the world around us can be known, and the person who created God can be known as well. So that's what I would tell homeschool families is get out there and enjoy this world that we get to live in.
Love it, Robert. And I want to just give a couple resources and a couple questions that people can ask themselves as well. Again, number 1, episode 59, how to raise an emotionally healthy family. Number 2, episode 120, 3 emotional tools that will help increase your emotional bandwidth. Awareness is one thing, but management is as important, if not more important than awareness. Well, they have to go hand in hand. It's best for them to go hand in hand. So, okay, I've got a handful of questions that will help also with this become an emotionally healthy homeschooler. Number 1, what emotions do I have about homeschooling? Write a list, pleasant and unpleasant. And then allow yourself to feel each of those emotions. What does anxiousness look like? What does it feel like? Right. So list, what emotions do I have about homeschooling? Number 2, what stories do I have about homeschooling? Am I telling myself that, man, this is going to be hard, I'm not going to be good at this is going to be terrible, right? Those are not positive stories that are going to help you do it the long haul. Next one, what emotions do I have about teaching my children? Do you have the subconscious, well, I'm not sure, I don't think I can teach my kid math, any of that stuff? What emotion? That's going to hinder you if you keep those emotions and try to still operate in certain behavior. That conflict between your behavior and emotions, your emotions are going to win over time. So really assess that, list them and feel those emotions. And then what stories do I have about teaching my children or homeschooling? What stories do I have? Next one, why do we want to homeschool our children? That's such an important question to ask yourself and identify and revisit over and over and over. I recommend people put your why up on the refrigerator. This is why we're educating our children. So that way, on that tough day when your tears, the kids are climbing on the chandeliers and doing monkey bars and the lights or whatever, let me just go look at the refrigerator. Okay, this is why I'm educating my children. And then also, do I know how to recharge? As the homeschool mom, as the homeschool dad, do I know how to recharge? Make a list. That is huge. Next one, do I know how my family likes to recharge? Different lists, right? How I recharge is different than how my family recharges. Both of those lists are important. I would also recommend putting those two lists on the refrigerator. It's so critical. If you don't take care of yourself, I'm telling you, you're not going to homeschool for the long haul. So you've got to be, it's like the airplane deal. You got to put your oxygen mask on first before you stick it on somebody else. And then I love what Robert said about undergirding yourself with truth. What is the truth about what God says you can do? Not what society says, not what your neighbors say. What does God say about you and your ability to teach and educate and raise our children? Thank you, Robert, so much. Totally appreciate you, brother. Thanks for what you do for the zillions of homeschoolers out there in CC and out of CC, man. I've known you for a number of years now, and I'm so thankful for what you're doing for our country and honestly, ultimately the world. Really appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, Noble. Thanks for having me on. I'm so excited about the success you're having with your podcast and EQ. It's so important not just know these emotions, but have the tools and recognize how to deal with these so that we can honor God in all of our decisions and everything that we do. So I just appreciate everything you've been doing and seeing your success. And I know you've been struggling during coronavirus, not being able to hug everybody. But it's come back to North Carolina. We'll give you a hug.
Awesome. I look forward to it, brother. Give the family hugs. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thanks. God bless.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.